this is really, really an honor for me to be able to come up here and do my thing and talk to you guys at B&H Photo. My name is Michael Thompson. About 2 years ago, I started a website to document my journey in photography. It's called lightenupandShoot.com. But let me just step back. Before we kind of get into that, I'd like to tell you a little bit about me. A little over 3 years ago, I wasn't a photographer. I was in the mortgage business. I had a mortgage company, and I dabbled in real estate. And when the economy started to turn, rather than try to figure out what I was going to do and kind of, I didn't want to do anything with foreclosures, and I just kind of had enough of it. I had been dabbling in real estate down in Central America, Costa Rica and Panama. And some investor friends of mine said, we're going to go over to Colombia because it's drying up over here. Will you want to come with us? And I went, that sounds dangerous, but yes, I want to go. And when I went there, I absolutely fell in love with the country. And I decided that I wanted to learn Spanish, and I decided that, I'm going to go there, and I found this little mountain town, well, I shouldn't say little, massive city called Medellin, Colombia. And initially what I was going to do is just spend a couple of months there and maybe work on my photography. I just had bought this digital SR, Nikon D70, and next thing you know, within 6 months, I'm shooting for magazine covers, I'm traveling around the world, and I'm loving my new life as a photographer. So, by the way, guys, if anybody has questions, I'm really I love the feedback, and any kind of questions during this whole thing, feel free to just jump in at any time.
Yeah, why haven't you slept for 36 hours?
Why haven't I slept for the last 36 hours? Well, I'll tell you. I was in Medellin, and my girlfriend, Jay-Z, she's back there somewhere. We flew, and we were supposed to have arrived last night around 10 o'clock, but the flight was delayed, so we wound up spending like 10 hours in Fort Lauderdale Airport. We didn't get in until like around 7 o'clock this morning. So, let me open up my Lightroom. Oh wait, let's watch that little video that normally what I like to do, you know how they have everybody line up outside, and then I just play that while everybody's kind of coming in, and it's just a visual. So I'll just play a little something, and then we can talk. All right, rock and roll. So, I thought it would be interesting today to talk about kind of my unique take on photography. And that's basically 33% gear, 33% the creative technical. I'm not a camera scientist, that's why I say the creative technical. And 33% you, the creative you. What is your creative vision and how can we take that and turn that into photography? So that's basically how I view photography. And so why don't we start with gear, since how appropriate we're here at B&H Photo where they've taken, I've spent a lot of money on gear over the last few years, and I've kind of got it down to what I call either the backpacker studio and now what I travel with me when the minimalist approach to gear just doesn't quite work for client shoots. So I use what I like to call the fat pack. That's where I bring as much gear as I possibly can in this and maybe a couple other bags. So the 33% gear. Hang on, let's see, how do we, Are you guys okay today? Everybody's really quiet. What's that? Because I'm like blown away. I'm like, normally everyone's asking all kinds of questions. Yes?
All right, quick question. I don't want to steal your
No, please.
Like
This is all about it. I want this to be completely interactive.
Okay.
Please talk.
You've been at this just a few years.
Yes.
How did you so quickly develop the compositional sense, the technical expertise, blah, 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 in such a short while, and the range of equipment that you did? I mean, it takes, 20 years, I'm not even...
So the question is, let me make sure this is right. I've had such a short period of time that I've been doing photography, and how do I get where I am now? First of all, it started with, for me, is that I was in the financial world, and I was always very, very driven. And thank God that the economy crashed, because I'm now doing something that I'm completely passionate about and that I love and I'm making a living at. And I also sort of, I have this feeling that there's something that you really want, you just go out and do it. And everything that I've been doing over the last years has been very, very planned. From even giving, I love this. I love sharing my passion with other people. That's why I do workshops once a month all around the globe, along with now doing commercial work. Well, let's get back to your question is, how does that start? Well, for me, it started with, I saw these images on Flickr, and I just was amazed, like, how do they do this lighting? So I immediately went right into lighting. I skipped the whole learning how to shoot in manual mode and natural light. I skipped all that thing. I went right to the lighting, which was, I don't recommend to do. And then basically, because I had moved to South America, I needed to take a minimal, what gear could I take with me on the airplane? Because I can't take this and a bunch of other stuff and possibly move to another country. So I decided that I would take, what did I need to take? So I took with me a handful of different light modifiers, some speed lights. Do you guys know what speed lights look like? Right? These little guys. Right?
Which one do you use?
Doesn't really matter to me. I don't care. I don't ask what brand of underwear you wear, so why should I care what brand of speed light you use? I'm kidding. So let's go through some of that and you'll kind of get it. So the minimalist approach does this. The minimalist approach to photography allows you not to be so concerned with a bunch of gear, right? It allows you to be able to focus more on your photography. It also does something else that's very, very important. It's interacting with your subject. I'm not a landscape photographer. I'm not a food photographer. I like people, so I shoot people. But you have to have that chemistry and interaction with your model. If you don't, the photos are gonna, what? They're gonna stink. So the minimalist gear approach allows you to focus on your photography, to be able to do a wide variety of different things. It's in this my little bag here. I've got a lot of different things. I've got softboxes, umbrellas, grids, neutral density filters, gels, and a few other little things.
Okay, but I think...
Are you missing it?
Yeah.
Am I hitting it?
How did you even know what a speed light was? I mean, you don't get to that level until you realize that, I need a different kind of a flash. A softbox, how did you know anything about that? You've only been at it such a short while. Did you go on the internet? Did you take
Well, I got to be honest, and I'm not kidding, but the guys from B&H Photo helped me out quite a bit. What camera to get, what lenses to buy, except that one guy told me to buy the 24-70 that costs like $1,500. Now I love that lens. I think initially, when you're first starting out, prime lenses are the way to go, and maybe get into zooms later. So just by doing a little bit of research, talking to a few different people, what is it that I need? That, and I spent a lot of money to be able to figure out this. I bought a lot of stuff that I didn't need, to be quite honest with you. And then it was a matter of experimentation and getting out and shooting. That's how you do it. That's how I did it so quickly. Yeah.
Yeah, so how'd you get a magazine cover?
How did I get a magazine cover? You guys interested in that? Let's see if it's, let me see here really quickly, because I've got like some photos to go with it. Do you want to see the photos?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, what am I doing here? If I could figure out how to use Lightroom. Yeah, okay. Well, it all started this way. First of all, I went to Italy. When the economy came crashing down and the banks stopped lending money, while everyone else was panicking that was a mortgage broker, I said, I'm going on vacation and I'm going to take this camera and I'm going to take a bunch of photos. So for a month, I had 2 lenses. I didn't even know what I was doing. I put everything in A. What is A? Is that auto? Auto mode, and I just started shooting. And someone told me that you should shoot during the golden hours, so I waited until sunset every day while I was traveling through Italy for a month, and I just started taking photos. And I didn't approach anybody for a photo. I was the guy from a distance. And then they would see me, and then all of a sudden I'm taking pictures of the bird flying by. I came back, and near the airport on I-4, there's this guy who has these mobile homes sticking up out of the ground. And I thought that was really, really interesting. So I called up over there. His name happens to be Frank Bates. And I talked to Frank. I want to see if I can go get permission to go on his property and take some photos. We'll have Frank call you back. Well, Frank happens to be the largest RV dealer in the Southeast. Frank calls me up and goes, "This is Michael Thompson. I hear you want to come on my property and take some photos." He goes, "Are you a photographer?" And I thought for a second, God, if I say no, he's probably not going to let me go on his property. So I said, "Yeah, I'm a photographer, Frank." And he goes, "How'd you like to take photos from a helicopter? I got a helicopter, and the city want me to take these things down, and I sure could use some help." His argument was that it was art. So where am I getting with all this? I guess my point is that was the first time I realized that this camera could take me in all different kinds of directions. So I am in Medellin, Colombia at this point, and I'm learning how to use lights. I quite honestly don't really know what I'm doing. I'm fiddling with switches and aperture and ISO and all this stuff until I get the proper exposure, have no idea what I'm doing. So I meet somebody who's a graphic artist. She sees some of my photos, she likes them and says, "Hey, I know this wedding magazine. We should go talk to them." And so I did, and not speaking any Spanish, and let her talk. So they said, "Yeah, maybe." So you know what I did? I went out and I put together an entire production. I found the models, I found the wardrobe, I found the location, I found the accessories. I put it all together. I found the stylist, makeup artist, the whole 9 yards, went back to the magazine and said, "This is what I want to do." And they said, "Well, what do they have to lose at this point?" Okay, so this is my first photo shoot, my first real photo shoot. These are pictures. I've come a long way since then, which is really funny. You see this second light that's lit up here? That was purely by accident. The light was sitting on the ground and it went off. I just got lucky the whole time. Remember when I was saying 33, 33, 33? I forgot about the 1%. Guess what the 1% is? You got to take for every 100 photos, you get one good shot, right? So those are the couple of the photos there from that. Okay, anybody else have a question? Since I went on a tangent there. Was it a good story?
I was just getting into it, and I want to buy the best camera and a video camera, because ultimately I'm going to do videos, but I also need to do some still shots, so I'm thinking I have to buy both cameras, and there's so many to choose from, and such a wide range of prices.
Yeah.
And I don't want to spend $2,000 on a camera when
Sure.
I should have bought the one for $6,000.
Right.
So any advice on gear?
Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to cameras, this is my philosophy. Hang on, should I hide this? My philosophy is most cameras that are out there today are awesome quality. You can buy the inexpensive Nikon, Canon, or whatever. I suggest investing in good glass, good lenses. Buy good lenses. And you know what? It's okay to buy lenses used. B&H Photo even has a used, I think they have a used department, I think. So to answer your question is I would just kind of find something middle of the road. Like for example, I'm also shooting video now. It's a big part of what I do. Clients are demanding video these days, not only photography, but hey, do you do video? Because I really could use something for my website or social media or whatever. So I'm a Nikon shooter. Don't hold it against me. Somewhere over here, I have a Nikon D7000. And that's kind of, would you guys consider that sort of be middle of the road? But it looks great. I mean, yeah, it's just a small little camera. You know what? But I also shoot with this thing. This is also this is my backup camera. So I have no problems taking this to commercial shoot and shooting with this camera. Now, on low light situations, some of the more inexpensive cameras may not work and perform as well as some of the higher end cameras.
What is that round thing?
The round thing.
Yeah.
What is the round thing? Okay, well, I guess we should get back into gear a little bit. Let me open up my little gear thing. I talked about the Backpacker Studio a minute ago. The Backpacker Studio is essentially this. This is actually a tripod bag. All right, I'm going to give away the secret. Tripod bag that you can get here at B&H that you can put light stands in, soft boxes. I mean, really whatever you can think. I actually put a couple speed lights in here. Right, so I've got this little guy. Bring me back home on what that round thing is here in a minute. I'll just want to show you this too. Right? Then my other bag that I like to use, this is my minimalist gear approach, is a sling bag. So what happens is now that I've got my light stand bag and then I've got my sling bag because they go together, because if this was a normal backpack, well, how the heck am I going to wear that? Like this? So that's kind of how that works. So in here, I can have a couple of different lenses, whatever I need, some gels. We can go through some of that. So it's a very, very minimalist approach. I love this. I can pick this up and I can go with my girlfriend for the weekend somewhere, and it's, the camera is not bothering her, and I can take some pictures when she's not looking. So that's how that works. Inside of there, I like to use we can go over this as well, an umbrella, a softbox. I've got a variety of different lenses, wide lenses, zooms, primes. I love shooting primes because they're fast, they're lightweight, they're inexpensive. I mean, if you guys don't own a 50 millimeter 1.8 that's $125, you need to go buy one today. Triggers. Triggers are radios triggers that trigger the flash. So what's that round thing? Oh, sometimes I use potato chip bags as flags. I don't know if you guys get that. All right. That's prevent lens flare. I was shooting one day and there was a potato chip bag that I happened to have in my bag, and just put it on there and solve that problem. I like to do flagging a lot, so this is something that I've been getting into. This is just a natural light shot that I've taken a flag. It literally is just, it looks like a flag. It's a black cloth. Westcott makes one, and the other one that I really like is by Matthews. And you can do it really is fine tuning and shaping. This is used a lot in the movie industry, film industry, this sort of thing. You don't see a lot of photographers using it that much, but I love that kind of look. Just to really quickly, I'll show you a couple. You guys want to see some of this gear? Am I boring you? You guys are so quiet. You guys are, every now and then, let out a scream that I know you're here. This little guy is my favorite new toy. I have not been excited about a piece of gear since the softbox, which when I discovered how to use the softbox correctly, but I've kind of done that a million times. So anyway, this little guy is a neutral density filter. It doesn't affect the color or anything like that. It's like putting a pair of sunglasses on your lens. So guess what that does?
How is that different from polarizer?
It's not a polarizer. It's cutting stops of light, like sunglasses would, right? But this one's a varying ND. They use it in the film industry as well. So let's say that we are out shooting in the middle of the day, full sun. What normal aperture would we need to get that shot? f/16, something like that, right? But you slap this little guy on there, dial in your 1.4 with your 50mm lens, and now you got this beautiful shallow depth of field. The only way to achieve that is by this little guy.
What's the name?
Neutral density filter. This one's a varying ND. It's made by, am I saying this right, Genus? Anyway, it's just, they're kind of expensive, but I love it. It just allows, it gives, and it does some other things. Anyway, I shoot through with scrim a lot. I know that doesn't look like a much, but I'll show you the photo. I shoot through it. It basically acts like any diffusion panel that you could shoot through, softbox, umbrella. It does the same thing. It's pop it up. It's there. I don't have to put it on a stand. Have your friend hold it, and you're getting beautiful shots. The question is that how does the scrim work? Well, scrim is used to diffuse light. Oftentimes we use it in natural light. For example, let's say that we have you, and you're our lovely model, and the sun's coming down, but unfortunately you got these horrible raccoon shadows underneath your eyes, right? It's horrible. So we'll just take this diffusion panel, put it above you, and it's nice, this beautiful, soft, diffused light. The closer that you get it to the subject, the softer the light is. The further away it is, the harder light. Because think about it, that sun, however many millions of miles away it is, that's why you get these black lines. But if that sun was right up against your face, you wouldn't have that there. Does that make sense? So you can also shoot through it with your speed lights or strobes or sunlight, sun coming in through a window and you want to diffuse it. If you're into photography and you're doing portrait, I would recommend going and getting a scrim and a reflector as a minimum. And buy the inexpensive B&H Photo Impact brand, because I don't think you need to go out and spend, a bunch of money on a diffusion panel. Did you have another question?
Maybe to clarify with them, you're actually not shooting through it, the light's shooting through it, don't confuse it with the...
Yeah, I guess to clarify is that when I say shoot through it, this means the light is actually shooting through it. I'm not taking my camera and shooting through a white diffusion panel. Good one. I might try that actually and see what happens.
How do you power your lights up on location?
Well, there's a couple different ones. One is that obviously when you're using speed lights, they're just... Okay, how do you... we've got to remember that I guess we're doing video. How do you power up your lights, I guess is the question. Well, these have little batteries in them. I use a larger strobe when I need more power, because quite frankly, this doesn't always cut it. If we're out shooting in the middle of the day, there's not enough power coming out of these little speed lights to overpower the sun, so you're going to need something more powerful. So this guy, I have a battery pack. It's like a portable battery pack.
That's for your strobe.
For the strobe. And I actually use...
External pack for the speed light?
I don't use an external pack for these. I have in the past. It's just another piece of gear for me to carry around, and this thing's already heavy as it is. So I try to be as minimalist as I can. I mean, everything in here has a real purpose.
And what strobe is that?
And I've got it down where it's just like, which strobe is this? I'm using the Alien B. It's inexpensive, and the Vagabond is, this thing weighs nothing. I think it's 3 pounds.
How many shots can you get on that battery?
I have no idea. But when it comes to shooting, I don't really shoot a lot. Somebody asked me, how many shots can you get out of this? The one thing that I see, I shoot with a lot of photographers. The one thing I see are just people not really thinking about what they're doing or what they're trying to say in their photos. And guys just and stop, breathe. What is it that you want to say with your picture? All these gizmos and toys help with the creativity, but once you kind of really understand what each of them can do, then it's like, well, what is it that I visualize here? For example, this shot. It's an old man against a wall or a door. If I had used an umbrella, it would boom. It's like umbrellas are like light bombs or light grenades, as somebody once told me. It would light up the entire environment. Soft boxes, or a little bit more directional, depending on how big they are, would also light up more environment. In this case, this was just a grid spot. One of these guys. Does placed on my strobe and directed right at the face and got a little bit of spill on the wall. And that's how you get that. So my point of that is that all these little light shapers and toys, play with them, but then think about what it is that you want to do. That was very, very that's what I had in my mind.
Did you take this in black and white, or did you convert it? The silver effects?
It was, that's a good question. I guess the question is, did you take it in black and white? Sometimes I'll intentionally will shoot in black and white. That's what I'm thinking. Do you guys want to see something like that?
Before you move on, what time of day did you take?
The great thing about using lights is that it doesn't really matter what time of day, because you can recreate the light that you want. Now, and we'll talk about this in a minute, I like to refer natural light as becoming a light chaser. You really, before you should get into all this, I did the wrong thing. I wish I had somebody to mentor me. Michael, stop with the gear craziness. Learn the camera, learn natural light, learn to become a light chaser. There's all kinds of light happening naturally, reflections, light bouncing off walls, light coming in through a window, light from a candlelight. Learn how to use these things. They're there. And then you can use the scrims and reflectors to help even control it even further. And then when you don't have exactly what you need, you can bring in the lights. And it's a balance between the ambient, the natural light, and then recreating the light. Did I just blow you away? Did that make any sense? Did you guys have questions back here? Nobody?
So you
We've got a quiet crowd today.
saying about that sometimes you shoot in black and white.
Okay, sorry. Thank you for bringing it back home for me. Yes, sometimes I like to put the camera, you can put it into a black and white mode, and because it helps when maybe distracting colors or when you're shooting in color. So I like the way you can actually go, that's what it's going to look like. Even though you may do some post-processing, there's a little bit of post-processing here. Rich, I like a very, very contrasty image with the black and white. I have some special things that I do. You guys want to see some of these I've got a couple. I don't have a bunch, but here's a couple. These were intentionally done. I went to the Amazon, and by the way, one of the things that I love about what I do with Lighten Up and Shoot, I created Lighten Up and Shoot to help document my journey, and then making these funny videos. I don't know if you guys have seen some of the videos that I've created over the last couple of years. Some of them are really funny, and just the funny things that happen when you just travel. So going back to your question is, how did you develop this? I'm always thinking about what's next. What do I want to do? It's just, if you guys ever get a chance to go to the Amazon, well worth the trip. Hang on, there's a portrait in here somewhere. Look at this little guy. And most of these are all shot just natural light. I didn't. That's a little monkey. He wasn't real happy about it, was he? My friend that was playing with this monkey and put the monkey on the baby's head. And the baby was kind of made that face, and I thought, that's a great shot. Look at this guy. This is on the border of Peru, and the other side's Colombia, and down that way is Brazil somewhere. It's kind of neat. There's 3 countries that sort of all come together. Look at this guy in his net. I love that shot. Snake. Black and white. I'm looking for, sometimes, and this was very, very intentional, we went into this village. Jay-Z was with me. Went into this little village, and everybody ran, but she was sticking her head out, and I like the fact that it's just black inside her home, and then it's the contrast there, just striking.
Model release in a foreign country when you don't speak the language.
Model release in a foreign country when you don't speak the language. Well, let me tell you, you know what? I've got a shot of, and I will, is it here? Here's one of the images. One of these, have you guys ever heard of the company called Westcott? They make these soft boxes and umbrellas and lighting equipment and that sort of thing. So I had taken a series with these indigenous Indians called the Mamos Indians. They're medicine men. And had the very, very rare opportunity to photograph them because they don't allow anybody to photograph them. Something taking away your spirit or whatever, that sort of thing. I'd spent some time with them, a couple of hours, got to know them, didn't speak their language. And make a long story short, I took these images, and somebody from Westcott saw the images and knew that I had taken the image with one of their products and said, we want to use that for our catalog. Do you have a model release? These are indigenous Indians. Luckily, this was Mario, his name was Mario, and Mario was sort of like the chief of the family or tribe or whatever you want to call it. Luckily, Mario, I was able to contact him and get the release. That being said, so coming back to model releases, it's always a good idea to have a couple of model releases in your bag, or for me and my purposes, I'll do a video release sometimes. Especially if the image is possibly going to be used for commercial. If it's just for my website, or I'm just going to throw it there, I'm not going to worry about that. And I'm not an attorney, I can't give you legal advice, but that's what I do. But that being said, if a company calls you and says, do you have the model release, you better have it.
What do you do in video? What do they say something particularly, like video release?
Does the release say something? I think just a generic.
Videos that you do video model release.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, for my purposes, a video release is fine. I've worked with other companies, just basically asking them to release that rights over that to you on video, and that's if you don't have the release. I've done that before. Some companies will take it, some won't. It's also a gut feel, like when you're working with somebody, are they genuinely interested in the process, and if they're going to give you a hard time. Does that make sense? Black Rapid. You guys know this camera strap company?
Oh, yeah. Rapid strap.
You guys want to see? This is really cool. Let me just show you this really quickly. Black Rapid. Ron Henry, the founder of Black Rapid, we became friends. I met him at a trade show, and I really love your style. Part of my style is like, with the Lighten Up and Shoot, is you go meet people that we've never met before, and we take them through a portrait session. And I'll talk about that in a minute, how you do that. So he goes, I want to do that for Black Rapid. I want you to go meet people on the street, and we want to use it for our marketing collateral. So I'm in Seattle, right down the office from the Black Rapid studios, and we meet this guy, and we go through a little session, right? Quite the character. I gave him my camera. He's got the strap on, of course. Going through the images, I'm using a softbox, and boom, I nailed it. What was the question? The model release. Anyway, here's a prime example where a client deliberately wanted me to go meet people on the street, and we did this also in LA, and these pictures of different types of people, all different types of people, not just, a guy that looks like he's maybe homeless. And I had to get model releases on the site. Right there on the spot. Hey, my name is Michael Thompson. I'm a photographer. I'm doing some photography work for this company, Black Rapid. They make this really great strap. You've got an amazing look. It's going to take about 2 or 3 minutes. I want to take your photo, and you know what? We're going to give you a copy, and you can be in the magazine. And that's kind of like, I did something like that. I said something like that. Hey, do you mind signing this? And 99% of the people said yes. Just like that.
Now, it looked like you have great lighting on his face. Did you have all your gear with you, or were you set up on the street and you were just sliding people?
I had all my gear with me. So much to carry around. In this, I can carry 2 light stands, right? 2 stands. And I had a softbox and an umbrella. In the other bag, wherever the heck it is, here, I had a few other little toys. So to answer your question is that this is why it's called the Backpacker Studio. You can literally just carry it anywhere. And it's unobtrusive.
Okay.
Doesn't offend people when you pull it, have that.
So you said you wanted to do this. Then you quick set up your makeshift studio and...
Very, very quickly, I can set up an entire light rig in probably 2 minutes.
Wow.
3 minutes at the
This
most.
was out on the street.
Yeah, it's completely on the street. All this stuff, guys. I'm serious. All this you're seeing. I mean, I can really, really quickly blaze. Here we are. This is me last year here at B&H Photo doing Safari Walk. That was really a lot of fun. Somebody here was you were here? That was fun, wasn't it? I've never seen 100 people, 100 photographers running around New York City and the whole idea was that we had to go up and meet people that we'd never met before and ask for a photo, right?
Difficult for me.
It's not though when you know how to do it, right?
Well,
remember?
you know what got easier is saying, I'm doing this for B&H, it's a photo safari, and, yeah, so.
You're right, and that's what I used.
Make it up, it's not
Well,
true,
yeah,
I discovered.
She's saying she makes it up. I don't do
I
that.
didn't make it up that day, but I think that made it easier.
When I'm approaching people on the street, I always try to be very, very honest about whatever it is. It's more authentic that way, and the chances of them saying yes are very, very high,
But
unless
I'm
they,
more comfortable going in with that rather than, I think your face is interesting. I'd have trouble doing it.
You're right. I mean, obviously using something like, well, I'm here at B&H, that it makes it easy. Look at all these other crazy B&H people. And this is a case. And this is a guy, this guy, Awesome is his name, Awesome. He was kind of terrified at approaching people. And he took my workshop, and I worked with him. And let me tell you, by the second day, he was every person on the street he was getting a photo of. It was amazing to watch him really kind of go from a guy that was terrified of speaking to people to just no problem. I love the way this guy posed. I didn't pose him that way. He's like the chief. I love that with his hands. Strong, isn't it? There's that guy. I love that guy. What was his name? I think his name was Dave. He was just great. Look at that shot. I was like, oh, I got it. This is another one of the Black Rapid things. Somewhere, I think this was on Venice Beach. This is the girl that I met on the street, and I thought she was just really, really striking. And she's now a model in New York City. Yeah, she's awesome. Rachel Reed. I met her in St. Petersburg, Florida, downtown St. Pete. I was teaching a workshop, and I went, you guys just let that pretty girl walk by? What is your problem? And I went over, and we did photos of her. We did video, and then I invited her. So I did this video called How to Find a Model, Wardrobe, and a Location in an Hour. So we found her, right? We found a vintage clothing store for all the vintage, crazy Indian headdress and American flag.
Wow.
And the location was just behind the wardrobe place. And we shot it, and we did a bunch of shoots with her. A bunch of shots of her. This was somebody when I was in Hong Kong that liked my work, found me and said, I really want you to do a portrait session with me. I've never had it done. So she hired this little boat called a sampan and took me to this island, and we did some photos. And it was just the one light kind of setup with the softbox, nothing fancy. That's what she wanted.
Did she like it?
I think she really liked them. There was one I did kind of artsy where the hair was in her face, and she thought it looked like she had no soul. I guess it's something with the Buddhist religion, I'm not sure. But that was the only one she didn't like.
How often do you simply shoot natural light?
I shoot natural light now more than I did in the past because I was obsessed. I thought, this is it. The softbox and these light modifiers, and that's it. That was my world. And I realized that I'm losing 50% of my world in photography by not being a light chaser, not being able to see what's happening with the natural light. It's there, it's available, use it. It's beautiful. So I think now when I walk outside, I see things. Look at that diffused light over there, look at that reflection. I mean, people think I'm crazy, but I'm almost kind of obsessed by it. You can ask Jay-Z back there. Am I obsessed by light? Yeah. It's a problem. We're having dinner, I'm like, oh, look at that light. This is actually kind of one of those moments, and I'm like, I feel the light. I mean, literally. And I saw the beaming sunlight behind her, but I thought, you know what? If I shoot this at f/16, I'm going to see those sea oats. And it was a windy day. It was right after some hurricane had come through. I was in Florida. I was home visiting my parents. And that's Rachel, the one now is a model. I invited her to come take some pictures. I had been here, as a matter of fact, and I had bought some new toys. I bought that neutral density filter or whatever it was and a couple other things and an octabox. Anyway, make a long story short, I took her to the beach. And so this is shot at an aperture of 1.4, which is really, really wide, right? You're going to get this beautiful shallow depth of field. Also, the closer that you are to the subject, the more shallow depth of field you're going to have. And I just put the softbox or whatever octabox I had to the side, right? Can you see it? And I just waited till the hair was at the right moment and I nailed it. That's all I did. It's really, so it's a combination of natural light, and using a strobe. Did I just blow your mind? That was
Were you
silence.
using a speed light or the Alien B?
I was using the Alien B because it was really, it was sunny out. I mean, it was like, I think this was shot at 11 or 12 during this last year or in the summer. So speed light, even if you had Ford speed, I mean, you can have 4 speed lights up in there, but why do that? Just buy one strobe, powerful strobe. There's a whole bunch of different ones. There's another strobe that's really great that I have. I just didn't bring it with me. It's Impact, it's a 400 watt light. It's very, very small, and it also comes with a battery. It's smaller than the Alien B, and I think you can, just the Impact lights. I can't remember the name of it. Ask one of the guys downstairs. That's there. I saw it. Same series, me being creative in post-production. You either like it or you don't. I like it. It's kind of weird. I remember you. How are you doing?
All right.
And you were sitting over here last time you were here. There's that shot. Doubt it. I got into this windy hair thing. Whoa, that was all the same time period. Now that I see this. That happens sometimes. You know, when you're kind of working through a style or working through the piece of gear, is that I keep working it and working and working it until I really figure out what it is that's going on up here. Does that make sense? Yeah. Everybody wants to talk about gear, but nobody ever wants to talk about the creative you. And that's one of the things that I like to talk about. This is something is like a process, and then I nailed it. See what I'm talking about? This is the same exact lighting situation of using the ambient. This case, the light's behind her. It's actually coming this way. Do you see that? Yeah. And I'm shooting through that scrim. I could have just as easily as used a softbox or an umbrella. It just was easy for me to have my assistant hold the scrim up.
Where's the scrim on the other side?
Yeah, it's kind of like behind her. Actually, I have a video of this. I just haven't. It's literally behind her. Do you see how it's not lighting up her nose? There's a shadow there. That's actually the image that I was kind of going for at the end. I like to show setup shots a lot. This is kind of my typical setup to start with. I call it the silly string technique. You guys want to know about the silly string technique?
Yes.
Okay.
Silly string technique is a way to, a lot of times when I'm giving a workshop, and when we say time to pick out the second light, and people go, oh no, the second light. It's really easy. I mean, if you know how to use one light, you can learn how to use a second. So basically what I do is I set up 2 lights, 1, 2, right? Face them at each other, and then I've got the subjects or the model in between, and then I can move them like silly string, move them in and out until I find the right exposure. And I have 360 degrees to work with. This is a great technique if you're getting warmed up with the subject. Pop up 2 lights, throw them in the middle. You've got 360 degrees to work, right? You get that? And then you can move them in and out because the closer they are to the light source, the more intense the light is, right? If they're a little bit too intense, can you mind just back up a little bit? Back up, back up, back up. Oh, perfect. Does that make sense? Looking for some unusual shadows, moving around. That's my silly string technique.
Do you use a light meter?
I have never used a light meter. I shoot everything manual. I have something that I do called nailed in 3. You better nail that shot in 3. Nail the exposure. So no. If I was shooting more product photography or doing more, in fashion a lot of times, you need to make sure that the clothing is, the right exposure, then I think a light meter is great. But for me, I'm using the histogram. If I really need to get in details, I'll look at the histogram on my camera. But no, I don't use a light meter. Where do I start with all this stuff? If you guys want to talk about technical stuff, I start with, what do you want to talk about next? You want to talk about the creative you, or do you want to talk about some creative technical? You guys, I want to know about gear and aperture. I'm kidding. Well, because it's important. And I'm totally kidding. But let's not forget, under my formula for photography is 33% gear, 33% the creative technical, and then 33% is the creative you. And then what's the 1%? Luck. Well, if we're going to rely on luck, we're in trouble. So let's look at that creative technical really quickly. I'm not a camera scientist. That's me, by the way. I have alter egos. That's Preston. Preston is a camera scientist. He's a total nerd. He's a pixel peeper. Are there any pixel peepers here today? You guys might want to leave if you are. Because I'm out ready to destroy the pixel peeper's life. No, I'm kidding. Okay, so I look at, have you guys heard that when dealing with off-camera flash photography, have you guys heard of this 5 variables of exposure? Shutter speed, aperture, ISO, flash power. There's one that's called the inverse square law that I have renamed called DOFI, depth of flash exposure. Well, you guys will have to come join me on Friday and Saturday in my workshop to get into DOFI. That's a whole conversation on its own. But let's look at a couple of basic ones to kind of see how I look at it, how I approach it, so that it's not complicated. One is shutter does what? In flash photography, shutter controls our ambient. That's how you can have this guy lit up, and then you can control by 2 or 3 stops underexpose the background or the ambient. Do you see that? Your shutter does that. What else does shutter do? Shutter, I also think about it this way. Motion blur. Do I want to stop it, or do I want to see some motion blur there? So that's how I look at shutter. Does that make sense? And if we were to look at the same image, aperture. Aperture controls our subject's exposure, but what does it also do? It does 2 other things. It also controls the ambient. If I want to kill this ambient, I'm going to have to do what? I'm going to have to stop down, right? So aperture does that. What else does aperture do? I think of it this way. What depth of field do I want? That's where I'm going to start. Does that make sense? Do I want a shallow depth of field, or I want to see the entire environment? Here's another example with the same guy, my friend Paulo. Paulo Escobar is the nephew of Pablo Escobar. He's a really, really nice guy. This was shot at his uncle's house in Peño, Colombia. One of Pablo Escobar's old houses. So here's the shot, right? He's doing this crazy jump thing. But you can see that I really kind of, in my mind, I'm thinking, I really kind of want to kill the ambient. So what would I do in that case? Shutter or aperture, right? So I do that, and in the next shot, I get it. See how it's effectively darker? I just did that by shutter. And then I think I added some fill in here so you could see the wall on the inside.
You talk about shutter, but even the modern camera, shutter goes to 1 to 50, and that's it.
We have limitations when dealing with off-camera flash. He's asking about the limitation that you have with your shutter speed. It would have been really, really easy if we could just go 5,000th of a second, but that's sometimes not possible depending on your camera. My camera my primary camera, which has taken a few falls, as you can see, I've got it gaffer taped together. But you know what's my lucky camera? It still takes great images. I don't care that it's beat up. It has a limitation of 1/250th of a second sync speed with my flash. So that's where we're going to have to get creative using the other variables of exposure if we want to control the ambient. Aperture, shutter. How close is that modifier to the subject? The closer you are, the more intense it is, right? Flash power. Oh, I need more power so I can close down. It all starts coming together, but I think of it creatively rather than like a camera scientist. What is it that I want to do? That's how I start, and then I work it from there.
So how long did he hold that position while you figured it out?
He held that position for a good 30 seconds. He can levitate. He makes a great model. If you ever need some guy, I can give you his number. He levitates. Same kind of thing. I'm shooting, there's this window. I'm not sure if I'm liking it. Boom, the sunlight beams through and I nail it and I get this really beautiful lens flare, which is almost impossible with the 24-70 because they put this nano coating on there that prevents that. Curses. I wish they didn't have them there because I love that sort of effect. If that makes any sense. But I love that lens. The 24-70 is one of my favorite lenses, 2.8. Beautiful.
It's not a fast lens.
It's, I mean, 2.8.
Oh, I thought it said 3.8.
It gets a little distorted in the 24 to 30 range. You know, when you're shooting pretty girls, they don't really like it because they get stretched out in ways that maybe they shouldn't. But that's why you would just use a long lens for that case. You know, in this case, I'm using an old 80 to 200. It's like half the price of the 70 to 200. I don't mind. I don't mind that for me.
No, that was the round thing I was asking about.
The round thing. This is a ring flash. Basically, this one works with a speed light. Right? Do you guys, anybody know how to describe the ring light? Yeah, even light. I love the way the shadows fall on it. It's a very, very specular light. Because it's so specular, if you get far away, it becomes really, really hard. It's already hard enough. So you get pretty close and it looks wonderful. It also gives me a time. I use this a lot when I'm shooting models to start with because it gives me a time to be able to interact with them, to get close to them and have some fun, some banter. So this is my fun ring light. And that's what I use it for. I also use it for fill. Did you guys see that picture of me that was on here? Where the heck was that? It was like a self-portrait. There it is. I've got the ring as a fill, this specular fill light, and then there's another light which is flagged for my face. This was sort of an experimentation self-portrait thing that I was doing. You guys ever heard of Dan Winters? If you look at this image, and if you ever look at Dan Winters images, I was obviously in a Dan Winters phase. And you know what? To me, there's nothing wrong with that. If you need inspiration, I often will look at other photographers to get inspiration, to get ideas. I don't think there's anything wrong with actually trying to maybe emulate somebody and then take out of there what it is that you like about that person's style, incorporate it into your own. And that's kind of how you begin to develop your own personal style. In one sentence, it's actually probably an all-day conversation. What else, guys? So, how are we doing on time? 1 hour left. What am I going to talk about for an hour? The whole bag?
Yes. Show us how you set that up.
Okay, I can do that. How do you set it up? Well, it's pretty simple, guys. You guys are.
When should we start the timer?
You can start it. It's pretty simple, honestly. Actually, I don't even know if I've got all the in this particular rig. We'll improvise. Let's just say it's a speed light, but it's not. It happens to be a strobe in this case, right? It's the same thing. Light is light, right? Right? And then what I would do is simply, I'm pretty much ready to go. I stick on my trigger, right? I've got my trigger for my camera. I stick that on there. And let's use a softbox. I don't always use a softbox, guys. You can use actually, I can cheat. It's already got a grid in there. So we're using the grid. I'm ready and rocking and ready to go. It's that easy. Now, what's great about this little rig is, let's say that I kind of have this idea of a grid spot. Very, very controlled circular beam of light. I'm going to go out and I'm going to find a subject. I've got my camera with me and I'm ready to go. Now, that's just a one light setup. Now, I could obviously have two lights. I could bring a reflector with me. Reflector does what? It's one light source, but if I have a reflector, now I have one light, but now I have two light sources. That make sense?
Bouncing off.
You can do a lot with one light, guys. There's, so much you can do with one light and have multiple light sources. using reflectors, other natural light sources that are happening. Matter of fact, anytime I let's look at this one quick shot here. I just saw this, for example. If you were to deconstruct this, one light on her, and where's that other light coming in from the head? Where's that coming from? The sun. It was kind of peeking through the trees, and I saw it standing there. And at first I thought, oh my God, it's that sun. It's horrible. Wait, back up just a second. So that it just hits the top of her hair. It was really nice. Yeah? This was a girl that I met at a trailer park. I was looking for a location. I had this idea of a fashion shoot, and she lived there. And she goes, I had some old cameras. And I took pictures of her. I'll give you one really quick funny tip. This is my umbrella. It's my softbox, but when I'm on the plane, it's my umbrella. And no one says anything. No one, ever. How do you carry this stuff? I take, generally, to be honest, I take an airport security bag, or I'm sure there are other bags, but this is the one that I have. And it's specifically made for photography. You can lock it up. It's got different locks. You can lock it up to something if you're at the airport and you want to lock it. Zippers up and then lock it to a chair or something. You can do that. I carry that, and I carry my light stand bag. I actually have a light stand bag that's bigger that I put 4 or 5 light stands, different modifiers, 50-inch softbox, umbrellas, a whole slew of things. It's big. And that's how I travel, and I'll check that light stand bag. This I take with me on the plane. I mean, this is not going to be out of my sight. I'll go crazy if they tell me they're going to put this in the bottom of the plane.
Is that think tank?
Yeah, it's a think tank bag. Airport security bag is what I use. But I've seen guys do it yourselfers. I guess would work fine. But this is a pretty rugged bag.
Yeah, I was fascinated by your self-portrait where you were experimenting with the light. How did you set that up? Did you have somebody assisting you?
No, it was self-portrait.
No, but I mean, how did you know that the lights were in the right?
Okay, she's asking me, how did I set the lights up in the self-portrait? Well, I kind of had an idea of what I wanted. I knew that I wanted something really dramatic on the face. I kind of wanted a weird look. That was obviously up to me, not the light. And so I knew that there was going to be a flag involved. I only have part of the flagging of it. Maybe I've got another image I can show you something that's a little bit more dramatic so you can really see the flagging effect, which I really have become to love. Do I have a flagging?
What are these color arrangements on your images?
Here we go. You see this? This actually goes on to a couple of little sticks, and it's a flag, right? So I knew exactly what I wanted, and I just tweaked it. I'd look at the image, run back to the tripod, look, take another picture. It took me probably 8-10 tries until I kind of exactly the way I wanted, make sure that I had the nice smile I wanted. That was it. It all, to answer your question, is to use all these different things, you have to get out and shoot with it a lot. You got to go out and experiment. If you buy a new light modifier, let's say that you buy the ring flash. Well, spend 2 days going out taking pictures with the ring flash until you really understand this thing. You got it in your head. So then it's just a matter of combining different light modifiers or learning how to shape and control light the way you see here. A lot of guys, like I said, they think they need a softbox, pop up in a softbox, put it at 45 degrees, fire off their beautiful image, and they're done. They didn't really put any thought in it. And it does look good. But the problem is they don't really know. I think that a lot of guys just aren't thinking about what it is that they're taking a picture of. Does that make sense?
I don't know what you do with the flag.
In this case, I flagged it where it's just on his shoulder, the light source. It's a big light source. I flagged it so that it was more pointed right there at the shoulder and the face. It's being controlled, being flagged. I don't know if let me see if I've got a better example real quick.
So you had somebody else holding the flag and adjusting it?
Here's a really, really good example of it being, obviously, there's something blocking the light there. yes, to answer your question, that I have somebody hold the flag. You can put it on a stand if you want, and then if you're working by yourself, or you can have somebody hold it. But I always like to shoot with other people. I love that, and I've never seen to have a problem. Hey, you want to go do some photography? Almost everybody says yes, and I also like shooting with other photographers because sometimes maybe they have some input, especially when you're collaborating and working on an idea or a production. I love shooting with other people.
The images that we've been seeing, how much post-processing are you doing?
I don't do a lot of post-production. She's asked me if I do post-production. Not really. Everything I do is pretty much in camera. It's like I try to get exact. I try to get the exposures right, the white balance correct. I don't do a lot of post-processing. If you look at my images, they're pretty clean. There's not a lot of, trickery. That's just my style. There's nothing against it. Some of the guys out here that might be Photoshop gurus, I appreciate it. I don't really have those kind of Photoshop skills. I mean, I have a little bit of Photoshop skills, but my chops aren't that great.
Any special way you get your white balance correct?
Getting your white balance correct. Well, I mean, obviously there's situations where maybe we need to balance for lighting like this. That's using different color temperature gels. That's one whole topic that we could have. Another one is just kind of, I go with, do I want a warm image? Do I want a cool image? To put it as simple as possible. Warm it up, cool it down. Does that make sense? Using this Kelvins, you can fine tune it. I don't bother fine tuning it. I get it close enough using the presets in your camera. You can get crazy with, well, I had it exactly at 5250. Pixel peeper, I am not. I appreciate those guys that take, photography down to an exact science. Me, I'm more concerned about the creativity and where the camera takes me. What am I going to shoot next? I pick and choose my clients a lot of times. For example, I don't shoot weddings. I don't particularly find wedding photography that interesting. So I'm not going to go and shoot weddings. I'm going to go shoot something that's more suited for me. Other people, on the other hand, I know guys that are infatuated with wedding photography. More power to them. Why did I get off on that tangent? Shoot what you love, I guess, is the point. Shoot what you love, I think, is one of the biggest things I can say.
So I do have a creativity question. Where does it come from? I mean,
Wow, where does the creativity come from?
Are you into artwork? Are you into other photographers? I mean, where does it come from?
Sometimes I never really know where the creativity comes from. It can come from so many different sources. It can come from, obviously, being inspired by other photographers, looking at other work and being inspired by it, wanting to get out and shoot and maybe try something. Wow, that was an interesting idea. I'd like to maybe put my spin on it. That's one way. Another way is sometimes when I'm not feeling inspired is go to a fantastic, inspiring location. And guys, I have a plethora of locations that, every time I'm walking down the street or I'm driving in my car and I see something, whoa, that'd be great for blah, 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 blah. I've created a catalog or a collection set of locations in my Lightroom from all around the world. So to answer your question, that's one way. But sometimes I just don't always know where it comes from. Sometimes the inspiration comes from these little gadgets. These inspire me. How light modifiers and light shapers, what they can do will inspire the photography as well. So it comes from a variety of different places. And that's the big key. That's the big nugget that everybody's looking for, I think, deep down inside. It's not what camera you use. It's not the softbox. At the end of the day, you're trying to tell a story with your images. What is that story? Who are you? You got a question over the guy in the corner.
I think one thing that you do that I find that I do with filmmaking is when everyone keeps asking about creativity, a lot of what helps make it come to you is look at how many places you've gone and all this. It's really about not just traveling to these far off places, but traveling within wherever you can go. When I first started filming, I would go and film so many things. Yeah. And that is a real big source of creativity.
Guys, it's so true what he's saying. What he's saying is that you don't need to go to Hong Kong, you don't need to go to London, You don't need to go to LA to take a good image. It's right here in your backyard, and you can do it too. It's everywhere. It's amazing the amount of images that are lost every day when I'm walking down the road. Oh, I wish I had a photo of that. It's everywhere. I think that's kind of where you're going.
Yeah, I mean, just that.
You definitely have to get out and do it. And I try to incorporate just sort of my personal life. You know, if I want to go away with my friends or my family, you know, I intentionally say, well, could we maybe stop off there? And maybe I can try my hand at. It doesn't, like you saw here, it doesn't take long to set this thing up. I don't need hours to set up, you know, a quick photo session. Now, if I'm doing a client shoot and the production and, you know, they may, if I show up to this on certain client shoots, they're going to tell me, where's your gear? I actually had that happen to me. I showed up to a photo shoot. It was for a magazine. It's more fashion oriented. I showed up with my bag of speed lights. They said, where's your gear? Here it is. They immediately had lost faith in me. Even the model did. The model said, I've got 15 minutes with this guy and I'm out the door. Luckily, the images that I took a couple of really good images off the bat. I got lucky, you know, like that's when you pull out the tricks. Okay, let's do something dramatic really quickly and put it on the computer, showed it to him. I was fine. But I learned a valuable lesson. Always make sure that you have this discussion with certain clients about gear. And if you don't have it, you can rent Pro Photo or rent what you need. Yes?
Are there, I hate to get back to gear, but...
She's back on the gear.
Back on the gear.
It's all about the gear for her. Gear is going to make your photography amazing.
No,
I'm kidding.
No. But, are there other speedlight modifiers in particular that you like?
Are there other speedlight modifiers in particular that I like? I think I've got, by the way, you got to have the gaffer's tape in your bag. There's not one photo session that the gaffer's tape is not broken out and used for something. Grid spot. There is a grid for your speedlights. And I'm sure there's 4 or 5 different brands out there that you can use. And this Velcro's right on there. I think this is Honal. It's kind of a junky thing, but it works. You can make one, if you could really make one if you really wanted to, and get some black straws and glue them together, and I tried that. And as soon as it gets in the camera bag and something crushes, it's all over. Yeah.
What's the name of this? Sorry.
It's a grid spot. It's just kind of I use it for, like, here's a great example. Very, very directional, tight. You can actually use a snoot too. You guys know what a snoot is? Where it's more like a circular. You could roll up some black cardboard and roll it up and gaffer tape it with your gaffer tape that you're going to buy later today to your speed light, and you're good to go. You could do a similar effect.
Foam wrapping? About putting that around here?
Foam? Yeah, there's that creative foam stuff. Sure, you can use anything. You can be imaginative with. I use all kind of crazy stuff.
Could you elaborate on your concepts of black and white photography? What goes through your mind? How do you decide?
How do I decide whether it's going to be black and white or not? Is that your question?
Yes.
You know, I love black and white photography. I always have. I guess, you know, just kind of, you know, I remember as a kid looking at black and white images and just, how do they do that? It's so striking. So that maybe that just has something. I have a passion for it. I can't maybe really explain it, but sometimes I will intentionally go out and shoot all black and white. The example of the indigenous Indians in the Amazon, for example. I wanted these images to be kind of striking. And I actually have a series that are about 25 or 30 images that I would love to do a book or something one day, or a gallery. And I intentionally shot black and white. I wanted them to be strong, and I wanted it to be, I didn't want the color to affect it. I don't know if that really makes sense. Does it make any sense? It doesn't. Sorry. Black and white.
You always have a light source with you, or just go out and take some photos?
No, you know, all this, guys, this is all great, and it's great fun, and here's the thing, I don't always use this. I use these tools as I need them. If one of these two pieces of tools, if this is needed for the shot, then I'm going to use it. It's there and I have it. To answer your question, if I'm just going to go out and shoot for myself, I will oftentimes just take a camera and one lens and a scrim and a reflector. A scrim and a reflector you can shove into the side of any backpack. I don't even care if it's sticking out. Most of the times it sticks out of my small little day pack that I'll have. And I can shape and mold all different types of light with just that scrim and a reflector. And I'm looking, that's where you're looking. Train yourself to be a light chaser. Get out and walk around. This city is amazing for different types of light that are happening. And it changes depending on the time of day. It's much different, for example, on a cloudy day versus a sunny day or during sunset. You just have to get out and find it. So I don't know if that kind of answers your question, but yes. I'm sorry, what was your question?
What's the difference between a scrim and a reflector?
The difference between a scrim and a reflector. One is a translucent material. A scrim is a translucent material that light passes through to diffuse it, whereas a reflector is literally like, like tinfoil, reflectant, shines the light back, right? So I'll use that reflector a lot of times. Let's say that this is a giant light source, this is a big window. Sun's coming through it. But you're dark, and you're sitting, I'm taking a picture of you right now. This side of your face is completely dark. I can put a reflector here, and I've got some nice fill, or I can control it and move it and shape it. I could put that diffusion panel here, scrim, if you want to call it that. Diffuse light so it's nice and soft. Maybe it's a little bit too hard of a light, too specular of a light. So those are two things that you can buy very, very inexpensively that they're awesome. And when you first time you see it and you use that have you guys ever used the first time you used a scrim and you diffuse that light, that sunlight, and it just softens up and oh my God, beautiful.
What is this color coding in Lightroom that you use?
What's that?
The color coding on your images, what's that in Lightroom?
Oh, are you just talking about maybe I was going through and doing a selection and maybe it was a complicated selection, so I'll put that one red and come back to it later. So I don't really know. It just depends on, there's a big part of the selection process that's a whole nother discussion is being very, very focused on what you're shooting for the day and then what's your selection going to be and how to make that selection. And are you telling a story from start to finish with your images? Maybe you went out for the day and can you tell a story through your images?
The two images of the fellow jumping in the doorway.
Yeah.
Can you review again for us, please, the difference with you had, that was not natural light on, you had to use a flash on
I was just showing an example of how I'm controlling the ambient light, that background light. There's a light, as you can see, there's a light almost kind of coming behind this wall, coming this way. It's lighting the side of them up. The other light is from the sun, because it was sunset coming this way on the other side of this wall. So the only thing I needed to do at this point, I looked at it and like, well, first of all, this wall appears completely dark, so I'm going to use some fill, and I'm just going to change my shutter speed. I'm going to have a faster shutter speed, which will only affect the ambient, and then I got the shot.
Doesn't have the same vision.
The question is, how do you handle a situation where your client doesn't have the same creative vision as you? You can, there's a lot of different ways to handle it. It kind of depends on the client. I might shoot both. I might shoot exactly what the client wants and throw in what I want, slide it in there. They can either reject it. That's the weirdest thing with clients sometimes, especially in these commercial gigs, getting hired for a job. They always pick out the worst images. Why? Why do they pick out the worst images?
They paying for it. That's what I was getting at.
And I drive clients crazy because I don't always give them all the images. We want to see all the images. And then I give them a nice selection of 20 or 25 images, the best images. We want to see all the images. I realize that I can't do that anymore. I have to just give in and go, okay, because I might be sacrificing a future job.
Well, that's what I'm saying. How do you handle a person like you have?
I have tried it. I've taken the artistic approach. You're all wrong, Mr. Client. It is not the way to handle it. Or at least it's, if you want to continue maybe working with that client, is maybe slowly try to change them, which I've done a pretty good job at. If you look at the wedding stuff, that was really like artistic and different for them. That controlled ambient with the dramatic lighting. Every single magazine that company had produced had all been natural light and nothing exciting, boring. And when they saw these, and then when I demanded the cover in an 8-page editorial or they're going to get nothing, they told me to take the highway. And I learned a valuable lesson. They liked the images and they wound up using the images, but you know what? That client didn't work with me again. And I learned a valuable image from that. I learned a valuable lesson. What do we want to explore really, really quickly? We've talked a lot about gear. We can talk more about that. We've talked a little bit about technique. Creative. I've got one. Just out of curiosity, anybody in here a working like professional photographer or as a side job, hobbyist, wedding or whatever? Okay, quite a few of you. How do you feel? Okay, part of your job as a photographer is, are you working with subjects? Are you working with people, or are you?
I do dogs.
Okay, so that's different.
Different.
That's different.
Sometimes kids with them, but generally.
Okay, she's a pet photographer, which is very, very challenging. I've shot a lot of animals, and I know it can be a challenge. That's when you hope for that 1%. 1%, please. Working with people. If you want to go out, let's say that you have a couple of new light modifiers, and you go out, want to go practice, and want to find some subjects, how comfortable are you approaching somebody that you've never met before, somebody that maybe is really, really interesting to you? This guy that looked like G.I. Joe on the side of the road was really interesting to me, and he had a machine gun, and I said, I gotta shoot this guy. Literally, I shot him.
Did you give him the picture? Did you give people their pictures?
I did. I said, you know what? The question was, do I give people their pictures? Let's talk about this process of meeting somebody for the first time and kind of what I do and how I do it. For example, in this case, I saw these guys. They're military guys on the side of the road in South America. They're there, and they're kind of like, on the weekends, they're showing, we're here, and it's a safe place, and we want to make sure that you guys feel safe here. Things have changed. This is a great place to be. And specifically, in this case, Colombia. And I was vacationing and traveling through the coffee region and taking pictures of just incredible diversity throughout the country of coffee farmers and indigenous Indians and military guys. I mean, so many different, it's like a photographer's paradise. So I meet this guy. Actually, I first met the...
Did you go to the poppy seeds?
I think that's like in some other country. I don't know that. Maybe you're talking about, there's another one. I don't know if it's poppy. It's something.
Afghanistan.
Afghanistan. No, I don't put myself in any kind of danger. This guy was here to help. But let's just back up. Let's just say that it's just an average person I find very, very interesting. How would you, if you just went up to somebody in New York City?
I did yesterday.
But you're an expert. You don't count. No, let's say you go up and walk. If you just say, I want to take your picture, what's going to happen?
He said yes.
What?
He posed.
They're going to keep walking. If you could, can I just take your picture? What's going to happen? If I just come with you, can I take your picture?
Sure.
What for?
What for? Immediately you got shut down with negativity, and there's nothing you can do to come back. That's it. But if you approach somebody, obviously with a little bit of enthusiasm, a little bit of a smile, and you say who you are, it's B&H Photo Safari, in her case, or I'm working on my portfolio, I'm a photographer. It doesn't really matter. You don't need to say your name. Nobody cares if your name is Michael Thompson or Joe Smith or whatever. Say who you are, why you want the picture, how long it's going to take. Because they say, oh, yeah, I might. But if you don't say how long it's going to take, this is going to take a half an hour. I'm not having a half an hour with this guy. Saying it's only going to take a minute. Luckily, you've got your very, very quick studio or natural light, right? Say who you are, how long it's going to take, offer to give them a picture and make a joke about it. You know what? I'll send you the picture and you can use it for your Facebook or you can send it to your mother. I'll say some joke related to that. And then I'll immediately assume, like a sales guy, right? assume that it's going to happen. All right, you ready? I want to move you over here. I like the blah, blah, blah over here. Oh, and your friend, can I use your friend as an assistant? And get them involved. So that's exactly how I do it. If I really feel like that I'm going to use the image for some kind of commercial purpose, then yes. If it's just for fun, like with this guy, I'm not, no. Actually, I did have him sign a release. I will oftentimes give the camera to the person that I want to take the photo of. Let's say that's a really pretty girl and she's so used to guys coming up and asking her all kinds of crazy questions. I literally will give the camera to her. Do you mind taking a picture of me, or can I get a picture with you? I mean, I do all kinds of crazy things. I try all different kinds of things. And I'm like 99% I get the photo. Oh. So what she's saying is she found this guy who seemed very, very charismatic and was a very interesting subject, but then when you got the camera in front of him, he just was like this.
Yeah, and he knew he was getting his picture taken. It was like,
didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And this is the other thing that I really find humorous about photographers is photographers don't know how to direct. Most of them don't know what to do. They've got this camera and I don't know whether they're just busy thinking about the camera settings or, oh my God, I just got to take the picture. I don't know what to do. But you have to direct. You have to be in control of the situation. You have. You have to control. You got to communicate. You got to control the situation. You got to have an idea in your head what you want to take a picture of, and you make it happen. And if you miss one of those elements, it's all over. And at the same time, you got to, get that subject or that model on your side. You got to be able to communicate with them very, very quickly and have some kind of rapport with them very, very, very quickly. And I do that through a wide variety of different ways, from getting people to jump, getting people to scream, getting people to fling their hair, getting their friends involved and let them be silly for a few minutes. I mean, sometimes, quite honestly, if I'm working, for example, I had it's a pop singer, Vivi Osorio. I did a photo shoot for her new album. She was not very comfortable in front of the camera. Luckily, she invited her mother, and her mother was there. I got her mother holding the scrim and the reflector and being my assistant, and we just joked around for 30 minutes and just shot natural light before I even got down to business. By getting out there and working, using the gear and getting out and having fun and taking pictures of people that you find interesting has been translated into jobs, and that has turned into bigger jobs. And then I had some kind of portfolio to work with to go to the bigger guy. And that was sort of the evolution. Also, it didn't hurt that I happened to make a bunch of videos that people found interesting and exciting to watch, because who's this crazy guy traveling around the world taking pictures of people, and the photos are a little bit interesting and the story is interesting. And then people started inviting me to come and do workshops or come do presentations, and invited to do Creative Live with Chase Jarvis and this sort of thing. So it was a evolution for me. It's also been something I've been crazy about doing. Like, I'm very passionate about it. When you see me and doing these videos, I mean, I got this big smile on my face and I'm genuinely excited about what I do. Except when I work with the client that doesn't allow me to be who I am. But you know what? I understand that, because you're working for them and they're expecting a certain product and you have to deliver. And now I've matured as a photographer over the last couple of years, and I can do that. I can deliver and understand having meetings and talking about their vision and what they want. Anyway, a little sidetrack there.
How do you market yourself, if you do at all?
How do you market yourself?
Like your brand, is it through your website?
My website is something that, quite honestly, I don't really show to potential clients until they know me, because they may look at it and go, they don't get it, or it doesn't really have anything to do with them and their product. I am not afraid to take my portfolio and go knock on a door. I'm not afraid to use the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, or whatever it's called. I'm not afraid to use those channels to other people. If you know somebody that, like, I really, really enjoy shooting musicians. For example, I had an opportunity very, very recently. I was in the US and I went back to South America. And I had a client that I is a producer of a TV show, and I was on part of this TV show. I knew that he had worked with some really famous musicians in South America. And I called him up and said, what's the possibility of me being able to maybe making some contacts with these people? I'd really like to shoot them. So it comes from a variety of different ways, but it's just like anything in business. If you don't knock on the door and if you don't ask, you're not going to get the job. I also have used agents in the past, and sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not. But quite honestly, the person that sells me the best is me. And doing my homework before I go meet with the client, really understanding the product, who they are, what their style is, and then try to present something to them that would be in that same vein. So to answer your question about home base really, quite honestly, is whatever I want it to be, but for the time being, it's in South America, where I'm very, very passionate about being there. And I've got my beautiful girlfriend, Johanna, back there. She's with me. And that's probably another big part of the reason why I'm there. Yeah, it's great being with her. If you're outside shooting by yourself and you didn't bring your friend along with you to help, what do? No. Well, sometimes I'll do that.
Ask somebody.
Ask somebody. Everybody's loves photography, or at least, sometimes I'll just, if I, usually as people, we don't always travel by ourselves. We usually travel in packs, right? Usually more than one of us. I turn the other person into an assistant, or I find somebody, hey, do you mind helping out? And by the way, I'll take a picture of you too, and I'm going to send it to you. Do you mind helping me for a minute? This is going to be fun. Come on over here. And I put it right in their hand. I don't really give them an option. Let's do it. Come on. That's one way to do it. That's an aggressive way to do it, but it works.
I think your salesmanship skills shows your photography highlights as well. Enthusiasm is contagious, so.
I think so. I came from sort of the sales kind of background. I'll be honest about it. I was in sales. And all that sort of translates to now what has turned into be more of a passion for me. When I go shoot it, I don't really consider it to be working. I'm having fun, honestly. Don't you guys going out? You're here. Do you guys all have a camera? Do you guys go out and enjoy shooting? It's fun. It's not that difficult to take it to another level. Even if you're just a weekend warrior or a hobbyist. What is it that you really want to do with your photography? Why are you doing it? Why? Ask yourself. And where do you want to be with it? And just go do it. It's not that hard. It's fun. I'm always pushing myself with the next project that I want to shoot for myself.
What are you working on now?
I'm working on a video project that deals with photography. So I'm working on that I'm really excited about. I've been working on it for a while now, and it combines everything that we're kind of discussing here with different really, really interesting people that I'm shooting, along with really, really creative video. That's the project that I'm working on. So it combines both that I'm working on at the moment.
Do you do any studio work or all location?
Well, to me, the entire world is a studio. If we can work in here, and if that's what we need to do to work on with these walls that we've got given, yeah, absolutely. So it doesn't matter to me whether it's studio or location. I consider myself to be more of a location shooter. I get inspired by locations. I love location shooting. And I find myself to be pretty good with clients too, at finding unique locations that maybe haven't been shot before, or something maybe different.
Is the best way to be in contact with you and find out what you're doing through this website?
Yeah, or you can just email me. I am very, very, very accessible. LightenUpandShoot.com is my website. In the website, I'm known as Mikey. My name's Michael Thompson, but I'm known as this character as Mikey. So it's Mikey, M-I-K-E-Y, at LightenUpandShoot.com. And, I often have all kinds of conversations with people through Facebook or email. I'm very, very, very accessible. I don't mind sharing, anything that I can help out with. I don't mind. And you can look on there too. There's a schedule of events. You can look and see where I am next if anyone was ever interested in coming to one of my tag-alongs. Some of them are very exciting. Like, for example, I did one I did one in South America with 6 people. I rented this big, Jeep thing, and we stayed at some amazing places. We rented this finca, this farmhouse. We shot models. We shot some people that maybe you saw some pictures of, interesting people. That was one. I've got another one I'm doing in Europe, which is really good. I'm doing one, it's only a 2-day one here in New York, Friday and Saturday. Anyway, any other questions before we call it a day?
Who's your favorite photographer?
Wow, that's really, really hard. That's kind of like asking me, who's your favorite photographer was the question. That's kind of like asking me who's my favorite musician, and that's a really, really tough one. I'll just throw out a couple of names of people that have recently inspired me. There's so many. And by the way, this is something I've only within the last year had been getting into and discovering, because photography is so new to me, discovering other photographers. One guy is by the name of James Minchin, M-I-N-C-H-I-N. He's a rock and roll photographer out in LA. He doesn't do any fancy lighting. He just shoots all available light, but his images just rock. He shot a lot of important musicians. Portrait photographer. I do a lot of portraits of people. I really love portrait photography. Dan Winters is probably that guy. You guys ever seen Dan Winters stuff?
Yes.
There's just something about his images. There's a newer guy that probably almost everybody in the room has heard of. He's very, very talented, and I know him. He's a friend of mine, Jeremy Cowart. He's shoots a lot of celebrities, musicians as well. Very, very, very talented individual. Anybody else? Who else? There's so many. A classic guy, Richard Avedon. If you guys don't know his work, go out and Google him later today. Let me give you one source. Write this down if you guys are writing down for source, and I'm going to come right back to you before I forget. TheCandidFrame.com. TheCandidFrame.com. Byron X. Perello, and there's an interview with me on there as well. He interviews all different types of photographers, from famous, like going back to the guy who shot Marilyn Monroe, to who's on the scene now, all different types. Great place for inspiration and different photographers. And at the end of each of his podcasts, he asks the photographer who their favorite photographer is. You guys, thank you so much for coming out. I had a blast. I'm glad I made it. 36 hours no sleep. Thank you so much. I had a blast. And so, hey, I'm accessible. If you guys need to email me, contact me, feel free.
For more information, please visit us online, give us a call, or stop by our New York City Superstore. You can also connect with us on the web.